Picture a Viking warrior charging into battle. What do you see? Probably a massive bearded guy with a horned helmet, right? Well, I'm about to completely destroy that image for you. Those iconic horned helmets that we see everywhere, from movies to sports teams to Halloween costumes. They're basically the biggest lie in history. Vikings never wore them. I know what you're rethinking, but I've seen them in every Viking movie ever made. Yeah, and that's exactly the problem. Today, we're going to figure out where this massive myth came from and what Vikings actually wore. Let's start with the hard facts. Archaeologists have been digging up Viking sites for over a century now. They found weapons, jewelry, boats, even entire burial grounds. But horned helmets, zero. Not a single one. In fact, only one complete Viking helmet has ever been found. It was discovered in 1943 on a farm in Norway. And guess what? No horns. It's just a simple, rounded iron cap with a face guard to protect the nose. Think about it logically for a second. You're a Viking warrior about to fight someone with a sword or axe. Would you really want giant horns sticking out of your helmet, giving your enemy something to grab onto? Those horns would be like wearing a "please kill me" sign. In close combat, they'd be absolutely useless. Your enemy could grab them, twist your neck, or use them to control your head movement. It's tactical suicide. So where did this whole horned helmet thing come from? The answer is going to surprise you. We can trace it back to one guy, a German composer named Richard Wagner, who wrote operas in the 1800s. Wagner created this massive four-part opera called Der Ring des Nibelungen, basically a fantasy epic about Norse gods and magic rings. Think Lord of the Rings, but with more singing and way more dramatic German emotions. For the first performance in 1876, Wagner's costume designer, Carl Emil Doppler, decided to give some characters horned helmets. Not because it was historically accurate, but because it looked cool and dramatic on stage. The opera was a massive hit, and suddenly everyone associated Vikings with horned helmets. It spread like wildfire through popular culture. Books, paintings, more operas. Everyone started copying Wagner's completely made-up design. But there's more to this story. The late 1800s were all about nationalism in Europe. Countries were trying to create heroic mythologies about their ancestors, to make themselves look tough and impressive on the world stage. The horned helmet became this symbol of fierce Nordic warriors. It did not matter if it was real or not. It looked intimidating and fed into this whole fantasy about barbaric, but noble ancient peoples. German and Scandinavian artists ran with this imagery because it made their ancestors look like legendary warriors. The horned helmet became a symbol of national pride, even though it was completely fictional. Then Hollywood took over. Every single Viking movie, TV show, and cartoon has used horned helmets. From early black and white films to modern blockbusters like Thor, directors love them because they instantly scream Viking. To audiences, it's visual shorthand. You see the horns. You immediately know we're dealing with Norse warriors, even if it's historically garbage. Sports teams jumped on board too. The Minnesota Vikings football team literally has horned helmets in their logo. It's everywhere in our culture, which makes the myth even harder to kill. So what did real Vikings actually wear on their heads? Most Viking warriors probably didn't wear helmets at all. They were expensive to make, and most Vikings were farmers who only fought part-time when needed. The few helmets we do know about were simple and practical. Iron caps, sometimes with nose guards or face protection. They were designed to deflect sword blows, not to look intimidating or make a fashion statement. Wealthy Viking leaders might have had fancier helmets with decorative elements, but even these were practical. Maybe some engraving or metalwork, but definitely no giant horns that would get you killed in battle. Some Vikings wore leather caps or cloth head coverings. Others fought bareheaded, relying on shields and quick reflexes. The idea that all Vikings wore matching horned helmets is pure Hollywood fantasy. Here's where it gets really interesting. Horned helmets did exist in ancient Europe, but they're way older than the Vikings. We're talking Bronze Age, like 3,000 years ago, not 1,000 years ago. Archaeologists have found elaborate bronze horned helmets from around 1000 BC. These were probably ceremonial items used by priests or chiefs during religious rituals, not battle gear worn by everyday warriors. These ancient helmets might have inspired some of the artistic imagery that Wagner and other 19th century artists drew from, but they had nothing to do with actual Viking Age Scandinavians. So why does this myth refuse to die? Simple. Horned helmets look awesome. They're dramatic, intimidating, and instantly recognizable. Truth is often less exciting than fiction, and fiction sells better. Most people don't dig deep into historical accuracy. They see Vikings in movies and TV shows with horned helmets and assume that's how it really was. Entertainment companies aren't going to fact-check every costume choice. It's also become a cultural symbol that's bigger than history now. Even if everyone knew it was fake, we'd probably keep using horned helmets because they represent our idea of Vikings, not actual Vikings. Real Vikings were way more practical than Hollywood makes them out to be. They cared about function over form. Their gear was designed to keep them alive in combat, not to look cool for Instagram photos. Viking warriors were usually farmers, traders, or craftsmen who picked up weapons when needed. They could unafford to waste money on impractical gear. That might get them killed in their first battle. The Vikings who could afford good helmets probably looked more like medieval knights than the horned barbarians we see in movies. Practical, well-made protection that actually worked in combat. Here's the bottom line. Vikings never wore horned helmets. It's a complete fabrication that started with 19th century opera and got amplified by decades of movies, books,